our Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Peng will provide an overview of our strategies and business developments, and Mr. Xu will provide additional details on the company's financial results. Before we continue, I refer you to our safe harbor statement in our earnings press release, which applies to this call, as we will make forward-looking statements. Please also know that BEKE's earnings press release and this conference call include discussions of unaudited GAAP financial information, as well as unaudited non-GAAP financial measures. Please refer to the company's press release, which contains a reconciliation of the unaudited non-GAAP measures to comparable GAAP measures. Lastly, unless otherwise stated, all figures mentioned during this conference call are in RMB. With that, I will now turn the call over to our Chairman and CEO, Mr. Stanley Peng. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Master. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our conference call today regarding our performance in the second quarter of 2021. This is our first earnings call since the passing of our visionary founder and permanent chairman, Emeritus Mr. Zuo, who was also referred to as Lao Zuo throughout the industry. And that has been the most significant event that took place in the second quarter for BEKE. We mourn his loss, not only because he has been a founder who set the mission for our company, but also because he has such an inspirational leader and trailblazer who ushered us to explore the future and create value for the housing industry. Lao Zuo has been an invaluable asset to BEKE and Lianjia, but his contribution and influence exceeded way beyond our organization. With a clear focus on promoting industry progression, he took decisive actions as an industry practitioner, and he was a true leader who had urged us to reckon the more meaningful questions, like how we can change the industry and how we create value for consumers and the society. Lao Zuo has inspired us to self-improve, be visionary, enact positive changes, infuse value in everything we do, and always do the right things despite the difficulty. In memory of Lao Zuo, we will continue to make dedicated efforts to fulfill our mission to providing admirable service, joyful living. We are deeply grateful for and motivated by the condolences and support we received following Lao Zuo's passing. We also appreciate Lao Zuo's family for their trust to the management by granting the irrevocable POA of the voting rights of their Class B ordinary shares to the company by Hui Partnership, to which Ms. Yi Gangshan and myself serve as initial partners. Lao Zuo's family, together with executive directors and core management members, have also agreed to a 1-year voluntary share lockup of their holding. After Lao Zuo's passing, we fully understand our goal, and we will rise to face the challenger and will continue to create value for our consumers, service providers, employees, and shareholders. Turning to our business operations, let's first take a look at the micro policy and market environment. In the past quarter, regulatory authorities expressed their views and opinions in various areas such as antitrust and data security, and issued a series of policies and guidance opinions in multiple industries. During this period, we have been honored to have multiple opportunities to communicate directly with the relevant government authorities and have gained their recognition and respect for our efforts to improve the industry throughout the interactions. At the same time, we have taken the opportunity to look internally and engage in self-reflection and introspection. As a result, we have further solidified our ongoing belief that our business model would not be feasible without the benefits from being in such a great country and in this great era. As we move forward, we will continue to reflect our thoughts on the two key questions, namely how we can change the industry and how we can take on more social responsibilities. Regarding the housing industry, recently many cities and regions have introduced various cooling measures, such as loan quotas, price caps, purchase restrictions, and mortgage interest rate hikes, all in an effort to help stabilize housing price, land price, and market expectations. As these measures have begun to effectively chill the rapid expansion of the housing market in various cities, the path of existing home sales growth in many cities started to slow down since May, signaling the beginning of a market correction cycle and a more stabilized growth period for the company. The rapid development of China's economies over the past 30 years spurred fast growth in new and existing home sales, as well as demand for home renovation services, with overlapping and interconnected waves of the growth among segments. In a time with more balanced housing demand and supply and more stabilized market expectation for property price, we expect three major structural trends and opportunities, including the industry's focus on shift from houses to customers and from transactions to services, and demand from consumer has moved from home purchases to high-quality living. In the housing industry, relative inefficiencies continue to persist, with overall low user satisfaction and lingering problems such as lack of standardization, digitalization, and internet penetration. In light of this, we do not expect short-term market corrections to affect the continued long-term firm demand for housing consumers' aspiration for more joyful living conditions. Our journey over the past 20 years tells us that market corrections create opportunities for quality upgrade, strategic thinking, and further development to improve competitive advantages in the future. In 2008, we introduced comprehensive scientific management for our organization. In 2011, we spearheaded authentic listing. In 2014, we initiated our nationwide expansion. And in 2017, we launched the platform strategy. Whenever the industry goes through a transformation phase, we ask ourselves if the industry would be the same with or without BEKE, and make decisions from a long-term perspective. Clearly, the industry will not be where it is today without these market corrections and the advancement that follow. During this industry inflection, we are again looking inward, like what we have been doing over the past 20 years, to seek strengths and explore opportunities to withstand market volatilities and create lasting future value. We will prove to the market that we are building a capable, sustainable, and social responsible enterprise that upholds an uplifting culture, and we aim to create value for consumers and our industry despite the relative market volatility. We believe we can generate more and more values in the housing domain. We hope our long-term commercial values that are built around home will continue to bring one-stop shop quality housing services for the 300 million plus families in China. Next, let's look at our business progress in the second quarter and the first half of 2021. The number of stores on our platform increased to 52,868 in the second quarter, representing 25% year-over-year growth. Approximately 30% of new stores opens were from our current Connected Store owners. The number of stores with a trailing 12 months GTV of over RMB 50 million exceeded 19,500, accounting for 37% of the total stores, an increase of 10% quarter-over-quarter. In the first half of 2021, the two-year CAGR of GTV per store for Deyou stores and third-party Connected stores were 20.3% and 15.1% respectively. As we shifted our focus in the second quarter to talent retention of the peak recruiting season in first quarter, we grew the number of agents by 20% year-over-year to 548,000. The agent attrition rate in Connected stores on the platform dropped to 8.1% in the first half of 2021, from 9.6% in the first half of 2018. The enhanced store management and agent retention, we helped 45% of Connected stores to fulfill more than 30,000 store assistant positions. In the first half of 2021, we implemented agent support initiatives for agents on our platform, which helped improve agent satisfaction and retention. In the second quarter, according to our survey, the number of agents that feel safe to work on the platform with others and the compliance to platform rules increased by 12% compared with that at the end of 2020. Average MAUs, including our MAU on platform apps and WeChat mini programs, reached 52.1 million in the second quarter, up 33.5% from which same period last year, as we continue to improve our brand recognition. Turning to our existing home transaction services, according to BEKE Research Institute, nationwide GTV of existing home transaction market in the first half of 2021 increased by 41% year-over-year and decreased by 8% compared to the second half of 2020. In comparison, GTV of existing home transaction on BEKE's platform rose to RMB 1.33 trillion in the first half of 2021, representing 17.1% growth year-over-year, while GTV of existing home transactions for Connected stores increased by 89.6% year-over-year, reflecting our resilience during the early stage of the market downturn. In a fast-growing market, agents tend to focus on closing deals. A market downturn, however, provides a better environment for us to refine management and enhance quality and efficiency. At the end of June 2021, we opened 287 contract service centers in 30 major cities in China, so that more customers can enjoy enhanced experience and transaction security during the signing process. We continue to promote our agent specialization strategy. As of June 30, 2021, our agent specialization strategy has covered over 61% of stores in 21 of the 30 core cities we operate in. In the second quarter, transactions completed collaboratively by specialized agents on our platform accounted for 40.4% of total transactions in the stores that implemented this strategy, a 7.7% increase from the first quarter, which indicated more frequent collaborations among our agents. Most notably, In Chengdu, 21.7% of transactions were completed collaboratively among specialized agents, and store efficiency increased by an average of 17% by the end of second quarter, comparing with stores not implementing specialization strategy. We also continue to develop new products to empower the agent to our platform. For example, we are testing a new application named Base Impact, 必行, which we piloted in Shanghai in the second quarter. Base Impact is a digital interactive tool to help agents interact with customers, presenting structured and visualized information at a glance on a large page screen when they are communicating face-to-face. Base Impact significantly promoted standardized agent operations and enhanced offline information and services, prolonging overall customer interaction time by 29% and accelerating the process of building mutual trust between agent and customers. With these benefits, by the end of second quarter, over 30% of agents have adopted Base Impact as their main offline service tool in Shanghai. With respect to new home transactions, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, GTV of new home transaction market in the first half of 2021 increased 39% year-over-year and was down 13% compared to the second half of 2020. In this context, GTV of new home transaction services reached RMB 841.7 billion in the first half of 2021, up 77% year-over-year, and GTV of connected stores increased by 85.4% year-over-year. During the past quarter, we continue to enrich online content for new homes. By the end of June, we have enriched online content for all new home projects on our platform with a minimum of 100 description fields completed for each new home listings. As part of commitment to providing authentic and comprehensive housing information, we also added a model describing unfavorable factors of new home projects, facilitating more informed purchasing decision. We are also making steady progress with our new home business conduct improvement plan. We also endeavor to offer 5 don'ts commitment to developers, including no customer journey hijacking, no customer snatching, no bribery, no collection of consumer funds, no fake adversary. As of June 13, 97.4% of our partners developers enter into 5 don'ts commitment agreement with us. Moving to our emerging services. In early June, we were thrilled to announce the acquisition of Shengdu Home Renovation. We first tapped into the home renovation industry in 2019 through the launch of our home renovation brand, BEKE. As we continue to deepen our understanding of this industry, we have developed an even stronger belief in the vast growth potential of China's home renovation market. The home renovation industry is of a considerable size, approximately RMB 7 trillion in total. However, there is scarcity of high-quality services providers and a lack of industry standardization and scientific management. As a result, it is difficult for the industry participants to effectively scale and earn profits, and they have to fight for survival in the industry, incapable of meeting consumers' increasing high demand for quality. As housing transactions shift from new homes to existing homes, the industry customer base also changes from new home buyers to existing home buyers and residents in existing home, adding more complexity and costs for conventional renovation companies to acquire customers. Despite the industry backdrop, Shengdu is one of the very few high-quality companies in this industry. Founded in 2002 and headquartered in Hangzhou, Shengdu has a long operating track record and a large customer base in eastern China, along with an experienced management team and a significant industry know-how. In addition, as one of the earlier practitioners of the full service module in the home renovation industry in China, Shengdu excels not only in marketing and products, but also in supply chain management and execution. With strong management and robust internal control, Shengdu promotes the core value of taking good care of customers, which strongly resonates with ours. As the existing home market becomes more active, consumers' demand for high-quality products and service increase, and technologically empowerment grows. We believe that the industry is now at a critical turning point. By seamlessly integrating the rich experience of Shengdu's team in the industry with our customer acquisition capabilities, self-developed standardized data infrastructure, and our belief and practice to promote development through vertical penetration and horizontal expansion. We are looking forward to making a difference for consumers and service providers in home renovation industry. At the same time, our in-house home renovation service, BEKE Home Renovations, which is being polished as a minimum viable products as MVP, maintain robust growth in Beijing. BEKE completed 834 home renovations in the second quarter, an increase of more than tenfold year-over-year. R&D is also a top priority, and we continue to make key investment to upgrade our technology to further streamline our process and enhance digitalization. For example, in the second quarter, we launched Home SaaS system version 1 that provides support through 5 modules: sales, BIM design, delivery, supply chain, and middle office management, further enhancing the end-to-end standardization and digitalization of our home renovation services. In summary, BEKE is firmly upholding and supporting China's policy and local regulations opinion. Housing is for living, not for speculation. As we are also cooperating with regulatory authorities in dismantling false listing and discouraging speculative purchase, which helps stabilize land price, housing price, and market expectations, and promotes the steady and healthy development of housing market. According to BEKE Research Institute, which credit tighten and control measures such as price caps in various regions, overall home sales are expected to slow down further in the second half of 2021. Over 20 years operating history has proven that a market with balanced supply and demand provides the best foundation for our company's long-term development. With our mission of promoting admirable service, joyful living, and our founding principle to pursue a better industry structure, we will take on more social responsibilities. We will empower agents and foster a friendly environment for communities, and we are committed to helping younger generation with affordable living through rental and other innovation solutions. We strive to fulfill more social responsibilities with a long-term goal to have industry progress, thereby creating long-term value for the broader communities Without noting, we are approaching the first anniversary of BEKE's US IPO. I still remember the letter I wrote to the entire BEKE family on the listing day last year. I mentioned in the letter that all institutions have their own ups and downs. The calmer an institution behaves during glorious moments, the stronger and more capable it will become when weathering difficult times. Looking back, the capital market have been volatile in the past year and went through waves of fluctuation. As an witness of all these ups and downs, we are more firmly believing in the power of our mission, admirable services, joyful living. We will continue to always look inward to search for new areas of improvements, create values for the society as our outputs, and stay strong and optimistic all the time. Thank you all very much. With that, I would like to turn the call over to our CFO, Xu for a closer review of second quarter financials. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I would like to provide a brief overview for the second quarter of 2021 financial results. Before we discuss financial results, I would like to iterate what we mentioned in last Q4 and the Q1 earnings call. Since our business operation had been seriously negatively impacted by COVID-19 outbreak in Q1 of last year, a meaningful portion of transaction had been shifted to Q2 of last year. We suggest that investors to look at and compare our financial performance as a whole for the first half of 2021 versus first half of 2020 to better reflect our business progress. Therefore, I will discuss both Q2 and the first half financial performance here. Our net revenue increased by 20% to RMB 24.2 billion in Q2, from RMB 20.1 billion in the same period of last year, exceeding both high end of our guidance and the street consensus. The increase was driven by the total GTV growth of 22.2% to RMB 1.2 trillion in Q2, from RMB 1.0 trillion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, our net revenue increased by 64.6% to RMB 44.9 billion from RMB 27.3 billion in the same period of last year, driven by the total GTV growth of 72.3% to RMB 2.3 trillion from RMB 1.3 trillion in the same period of last year. In particular, our net revenue from existing home transaction services increased by 4.9% to RMB 9.6 billion in Q2 from RMB 9.2 billion in the same period of last year, primarily attributable to 11.7% increase in GTV of existing home transactional to RMB 652 billion in Q2 from RMB 583.5 billion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, our net revenue from existing home transaction services increased by 57.9% to RMB 19.8 billion from RMB 12.6 billion in the same period of last year, driven by a 70.1% increase in GTV of existing home transaction to RMB 1.3 trillion from RMB 779.2 billion in the same period of last year. Our net revenue from new home transaction services increased by 31.9% to RMB 13.9 billion in Q2 from RMB 10.5 billion in the same period of last year, primarily attributable to an increase of 32.3% in GTV of new home transaction to RMB 498.3 billion in Q2 from RMB 376.6 billion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, our net revenue from new home transaction services increased by 70.4% to RMB 23.8 billion from RMB 14 billion in the same period of last year, driven by a 70.7% increase in GTV of new home transaction to RMB 841.7 billion from RMB 493.1 billion in the same period of last year. Our net revenue from emerging and other services increased by 50.6% to RMB 0.7 billion in Q2 from RMB 0.4 billion in the same period of last year, The increase was primarily attributable to the increase of penetration level in the company's financial services around the housing transaction services, and an increased number of home renovation units completed through the company's platform. For the first half of 2021, our net revenue from emerging and other services increased by 68.9% to RMB 1.2 billion from RMB 0.7 billion in the same period of last year. Cost of revenues increased by 38.6% year-over-year to RMB 18.8 billion in Q2, from RMB 13.6 billion in the same period of last year. Gross profit was RMB 5.3 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 6.6 billion in the same period of last year. Gross margin was 22.1% in Q2, compared to 32.5% in the same period of last year. The decrease in gross margin was mainly because, one, market in Q2 of 2021 had a more ordinary performance compared to the same period of last year, as a significant portion of transactions, especially existing home transactions, shift from Q1 to Q2 of last year, owing to COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in a higher base of gross margin in that period. Two, in Q2 of 2021, the existing home sales market was affected by a series of market cooling measures that led to a relatively low contribution from existing home transaction revenue to total net revenue of the company, resulting in a lower total contribution margin compared to the same period of last year. Three, proportion of new home transactions completed by connected agents and other sales channels increased in Q2 compared to the same period of last year, resulting in a lower new home contribution margin in Q2. For the first half of 2021, gross profit increased by 43.9% to RMB 10.1 billion from RMB 7.1 billion in the same period of last year. Operating expenses were RMB 4.2 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 3.3 billion in the same period of last year. General and administrative expenses were RMB 2.2 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 2.0 billion in the same period of last year, mainly due to an increase in share-based compensation expenses. Sales and marketing expenses were RMB 1.2 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 788 million in the same period of last year, mainly due to increase of the online and offline advertisement and branding campaigns, as well as increase of headcount in business development. Research and development expenses were RMB 775 million in Q2, compared to RMB 524 million in the same period of last year, mainly due to the increase of headcount in experienced R&D personnel and increased share-based compensation expenses. Total share-based compensation expenses were 436.2 million in Q2, compared to none in the same period of last year. Income from operation was RMB 1.1 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 3.3 billion in the same period of last year. Operating margin was 4.6% in Q2, compared to 16.3% in the same period of last year, primarily due to the relatively higher gross profit margin in the second quarter of last year, as we discussed in gross profit, and the less operating expenses incurred in that period due to travel and offline event restriction. For the first half of 2021, income from operation increased by 28.6% to RMB 2.1 billion from RMB 1.7 billion in the same period of last year. Excluding non-GAAP items, our adjusted income from operation was RMB 1.7 billion in Q2, compared to 3.4 billion in the same period of last year. Adjusted operating margin was 6.9% in Q2, compared to 17.1% in the same period of last year. Adjusted EBITDA was RMB 2.6 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 3.8 billion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, adjusted income from operations increased by 64.6% to RMB 3.2 billion from RMB 2.0 billion in the same period of last year. Net income was RMB 1.1 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 2.8 billion in the same period of last year. Excluding non-GAAP items, our adjusted net income was RMB 1.6 billion in Q2, compared to RMB 3.0 billion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, adjusted net income increased by 68.8% to RMB 3.1 billion from RMB 1.9 billion in the same period last year. Net income attributable to KE Holdings Inc. ordinary shareholders increased by 5.6% to RMB 1.11 billion in Q2 from RMB 1.05 billion in the same period last year. Adjusted net income attributable to KE Holdings Inc. was RMB 1.6 billion in Q2, compared to adjusted net income attributable to KE Holdings Inc. of RMB 2.9 billion in the same period of last year. For the first half of 2021, adjusted net income attributable to KE Holdings Inc. increased by 68.7% to RMB 3.1 billion from RMB 1.9 billion in the same period of last year. Diluted net income per ADS attributable to KE Holdings Inc. ordinary shareholders was RMB 0.93 in Q2, compared to RMB 2.12 in the same period of last year. Adjusted diluted net income per ADS attributable to KE Holdings Inc.'s ordinary shareholders was RMB 1.37 in Q2, compared to RMB 2.23 in the same period of last year. As of June 30, 2021, the combined balance of our cash equivalent, restricted cash, and short-term investment amounted to RMB 59.2 billion or $9.2 billion. Additionally, as of June 30, 2021, the balance of our long-term cash items, mainly included in long-term investment, amounted to RMB 8.8 billion or $1.4 billion. During the second quarter, a slew of city-specific policies and the severe market cooling measures were rolled out in order to effectively stabilize the land price, home price, and market expectations. We expect the second half of this year to be one of the most stringent periods in past decades in terms of unprecedented conditions such as intensify of policy launching, the variety of tool supply, and the number of regulatory involved. From the supply side, 3 right lines to developers, 2 right lines to financial institutions, concentrate land auction in 22 cities, and the reference price for home listing have impacted both new home and existing home transactions. From demand side, tightening up mortgage practice and the lengthening approval period has significantly extended the transaction cycle, while the issuance of reference price and the purchase restriction has led to cooling down of consumer expectations. Those measures will promote stable and healthy development of the real estate market in the long run, while they will also bring the short-term uncertainties. As a result, we expect the real estate market will cool down moderately in the second half of this year. In the face of this challenge, we firmly uphold those policies and measures and support government to crack down on housing speculation in some certain overheated cities to stabilize the market. We believe the longing for the joyful living and better housing creates a firm demand from the customers. We have experienced several times of market ups and downs in the past 2 decades. Nevertheless, the company always become better and stronger when we pass through those cycles. This is also the root cause why BEKE and Lianjia could be developed so well today. According to BEKE Research Institute, nationwide GTV of existing home sales market is expected to fall over 40% year-over-year in the third quarter. We will advance our agent specialization strategy in existing home sales sectors to ensure more business opportunities are accessible to our agents. Incentivize and support store owners to introduce multiple benefits in an effort to smooth out market cycle disruptions to agency income and retain talent in the industry. Meanwhile, nationwide GTV of new home transaction market is expected to dip 5% year-over-year in the third quarter with the credit tightening and the purchase curve intensifying. We will continue to invest in and develop professional new home agents, improving business conduct, and enriching online content for new home sales sector. We believe with market expectations stabilized after rounds of measures issued, as well as increasing sales through demand from developers, in the traditional peak season. Opportunities are still sufficient in new home sales sector for us in the second half of this year. Based on above considerations, looking forward to the third quarter of 2021, we expect our net revenue to be between RMB 14.5 billion and RMB 15.5 billion, representing a decrease of approximately 24.6% to 29.4% from the same quarter of 2020. This forecast considers the potential impact of the recent real estate-related policies and measures, and the company's current and preliminary view on business situation and the market condition, which is subject to change. Nevertheless, although our top-line growth guidance has been slowing down, mainly due to external circumstances, we are confident that our strong moat in the collaborative network we uphold in quality services and the input efficiency will help us to continuously outperform the market. The foundation to push through the downturn depends on the faith of the team. Whether we believe we have the ability to turn the corner, whether we believe that the sticking to our professionalism will eventually pay off, whether we believe the esprit core will drive us out of starting stage. This kind of faith is what truly matters in difficult times. Meanwhile, based on above-mentioned market trends and our decades of experience going through several market downturns, as well as strong sense of mission to take on more social responsibility, the second half of this year, we will continue to put our efforts into company's infrastructure and emerging business. We will increase our support to agents to incubate them standing out in the industry and go through this difficult time together. We will also contribute more value to the society by speeding up our exploration in home renovation and furnishing business, and pledging our efforts in rental housing services for young people and new city dwellers. Therefore, we reasonably foresee that we will commit more investment into our new business development in the second half of this year. In summary, although our performance cannot go against the market general momentum in short term, we still strongly believe in what also mentioned in our prospectus. We focus on endogenous factors and minimize external influence, matching through noises and market volatilities. We believe it is our fundamental value rather than external circumstances that is the key to continued success of BEKE. Compared to our near-term financial performance, we devote more efforts in developing and investing in our long-term capabilities, even though it might take time to achieve the financial returns on those investment. In fact, the longer it takes and the more difficult it is, the more excited we become. That concludes our prepared remarks. We would like now to open the call to questions. Operator, please go ahead.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, you will need to press star one on your telephone. To withdraw your question, please press the pound or hash key. For the benefit of all participants on today's call, please limit yourself to one question. And if you have any additional questions, you can re-enter the queue. If you are going to ask the questions in Chinese, please follow with English translation. Please stand by while we compile the Q&A roster. First question comes from the line of Liping Zhao of CICC. Please go ahead.
Stanley 涛哥好，感谢接受我的提问啊。我这边的问题是关于佣金率的，因为之前市场上也有一些谣传啊，就关于这个佣金率可能有个cap 之类的，不知道公司对于这个问题怎么看？然后我们未来几个这个 quarter 它的这个佣金率的变化，或者说 outlook 会是怎么样的？然后我自己快翻译一下。Good morning, Stanley and Tao. My question is related to the commission rate. There was some rumor circling around market saying that there might be some limit on the agent commission rate. So how should we expect? What's the view from management, and how should we expect the commission rate in coming quarters? Thank you.
Thank you, Liping. This is Tao. Regarding the recent rumors, there have been lots of rumor about existing home sales commission rate recently. especially a WeChat Moments screenshot, which was widely spread in many social network groups 3 weeks ago. The rumor was sent by a junior person from a parasitic broker company, which is doing skipping order in Shanghai, which was a false news with ulterior motives. Meanwhile, we have been in close communication with the relevant authority and actively reporting related issues to them. The clear response from the Ministry of the Housing and Urban Rural Development is that so far there is no such information in restricting housing transaction commission fee. I hope makes this clear. So, and we do think the roles in the market is very different with K-12 education sectors, with a different intention from the regulator. Being a fair and public service is the key to education sector, while the housing for living, not for speculation, is the key for the housing sectors. Therefore, we do think building up long-term mechanism in housing market to contain housing price from excessive hikes is the goal, rather than containing housing transaction and the related services. On one hand, the stabilization of the housing price aims to suppress the wealth effect and a wide impact of people's livelihoods and their consumptions. On the other hand, recent policy are all aimed at supporting long-term healthy growth of the population and improvements in the population structure. On the stable housing price and the long-term supply-demand balanced market could enable a wider range of consumers to live better and continuously improve their living conditions, which is a solid foundation of sustainable and healthy growth of population. Therefore, we believe a market environment which is benefit for BEKE's long-term development remain unchanged. In summary, as I mentioned this point for several times, I want to make it clear again. The commission rate reflects the service quality, transaction efficiency, and the service commitment. Charging a reasonable rate without quality, service commitment is a false proposition. It's like water without source and the tree without the roots. Going forward, BEKE will continuously invest our infrastructure and agents' professional training, offer more subsidy to support connect store development and agents' education in order to bring more value to the industry. We believe the overall commission rate on our platform will remain relatively stable. Hope this clarifies.
Thank you. Next question comes from the line of Piyush Mubayi from Goldman Sachs. Please ask your question.
Thank you for taking my question. Your company's been through 20 years in the real estate market in China and been through multiple cycles. We'd be grateful if you could take us through some of the past cycles that you've been through and how long it has taken you to come out of those cycles from a negative growth rate to a positive growth rate. And if you could spell that through on a quarter-by-quarter basis, how long can the quarter be? How many quarters can the negative growth rate be before you come out based on, let's say, the last 2 or 3 cycles? That would be very useful for us to better understand. And while we completely understand that you're in sync with the government objective for pricing and price stability in the market, if you could just go through where the vulnerable points have been, where the volumes have declined very sharply, and where those points will start to stabilize, i.e. we start to see no further declines coming through. And if you could take us through where you are in Shenzhen in the last quarter or next quarter, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Piyush. Because this first half is a very booming season in 2021, so after the over booming first quarter, and the credit starts to tighten in the second quarter, and many regulatory policy were introduced in some over 50 cities like Shenzhen, which has led to a start of the market downturn. For the second half of this year, we expect the overall market to continue cooling down. Currently, we reasonably foresee the property market will be under more pressure in Q3 compared to Q2 and the last Q4. In terms of credit supply, we expect the regulation to remain tight in the second half of this year, resulting in continuously rising mortgage rates, further extend the loan approval and the lending cycle. For existing home sales market, we expect will be largely affected in this Q3 by credit tightening and other regulations such as the reference price cap taking effect, causing overall existing home sales market GTV in the second half to slow down. And in terms of the new home sales market, Q3 is a traditional weak season, coupled with impact from loan restriction and the insufficient new home supply. We believe the new home sales might take a slowdown quarter-over-quarter in this Q3, but would recover in this Q4, supported by the seasonal strength. We expect second half GTV for the new home sales market to dip by 10% year-over-year for the market. Developers will be more reliant on the broker channels in second half of this year, given the slowing down of existing home transaction, which add to difficulties in developers' customer acquisition. So for BEKE and Lianjia, we have a 20 years history. We have undergone at least 7 times market cycles and ups and downs. So I want to invite our chairman of board, Stanley, to give some color on this for further elaboration.
对，那我就分享一下吧，就是因为刚刚也很关心这个问题哈，就是这个行业这个周期性的这个问题，包括呢在这种情况底下，我们怎么看这些，就是我们自己的观点嘛。
Yeah, this is Stanley. Let me to answer your question in terms of the the cyclical trend and how we view those kind of cyclical impact to our business. Stanley.
对，因为我想我们在上市的时候啊，我们曾经也写过一句话哈，我这行业呢是个大家都说这个是不是个周期性行业是吧？我说其实呢，如果把3年放在一起看，可能会看得更清楚一点。比如说以年为单位，或者以季度为单位，还是以3年为单位，其实看出来结果呢是很不一样的。其实为什么这么说呢？我想跟大家来先分享一下啊，就这个行业的周期性啊是怎么产生的。
Yeah, when we IPO, we actually has been discussed a lot with the investors in terms of how we can view our business cycle, right? Whether we should look at that in a quarterly basis or in an annually basis or in the even like a 3 years basis. We truly believe the 3 years is pretty much like a cyclical, which is more represent of our business cycle.
对，我想很多的这个分析师吧，或者投资人可能也其实对这个行业呢并没有那么的了解，所以呢第一次遇到这种情况之后呢，可能就感觉有点这个心里不踏实哈。但我可以跟大家做一个分享，就是波动性怎么产生的。其实对于任何一个城市和一个行业来说呢，它都有它的这个增长这个路径啊。或者我举一个例子吧，比如我们以一个城市为例啊，比如像北京或者上海，它每一个城市呢都有它的成熟度，就是行业有一个成熟度。像北京哈，如果北京一共800万到900万套房子，如果它的每年的换手率在1%的时候呢，就是比较低的时候；如果在换手率在4%的时候呢，就是比较高的时候。所以市场呢有一个稳定线啊，就是像一个量和价之间的关系。像北京如果一个月的成交的量啊，如果超过比如说2.5万套，这个时候呢就会发生一个巨大的变化，就是房价会快速上涨，然后交易量也会快速上涨。如果在2万套以下呢，基本上房价不太会快速上涨，成交量呢也是相对会比较稳定啊，这是一个微观的一个市场的情况。
I think in terms of our business momentum, so a lot of the the analysts and investors is not quite understand that. That is why when we're facing the first cycle after our IPO, so the people will feel unsafe on that. So for me, I can explain that more details in terms of those kind of volatility, right? So when we look at each of the no matter which city or which industry, they all have their own growth paths, right? So we look at the the materiality or in a more macro of the models for our business. For example, in Beijing city, there are roughly like 8 million to 9 million of the existing homes, and if we look at the the turnover rate is around like 1%. It normally represent it's a low level in the industry, and 4% normally represent is more like a highly traded of the market. So that actually also to be matched with the stability within that kind of market. For the normal conditions, normally we think for the Beijing it's about 25,000 of the the transaction volume per month will be a more normalized of the level. If we look at a certain period, which is significantly surpassed of those 25,000 volumes, the housing price actually will hack very quickly, and then followed by that, the transaction volume will be follow.
对，所以我们会看到过去的20年时间里面呢，它穿行在20年里面的底线哈，就是任何一个城市从微观层面来说呢，任何一个城市都有稳定的交易量，围绕这个交易量本身的上下波动。如果交易量呢大幅超过就是稳定的这个交易量哈，就会价格会大幅上涨。所以你会发现呢，就是2年时间，成交量围绕着这个城市的稳态在波动啊，就是上下的比较小幅度波动，价格呢相对稳定，或者呢价格呢在微微的上涨。这个微微啊，大概就是在8%，跟 GDP 呢有相应的这种关系啊。这个时候呢，价格相对会稳定。在3年的第一个就是最后的那一年呢，就是交易量会大幅上涨，然后价格也会大幅上涨，然后带来整个市场的一个均衡被破坏。所以在这个时候呢，就会出相应的政策。所以我们会发现哈，行业过往啊都是每3年一个周期，前2年平稳，第3年然后呢就是价格和量的这种快速上涨，然后呢出相应的政策，然后又开始这个进入3年哈，大概这是过往的整个的这样的一个节奏。
So in summary, saying each of the cities we have a so-called very, the normalized of the transaction volumes. And if the transaction volume significantly has been surpassed or lower than those kind of, the market normal condition, the price will will follow by that to have a significant changes. When we look at the 3-year cycle, normally the first year and the second year, the transaction volume will relatively stable. But if there's a certain period, suddenly we see some of the transaction volume increase followed by the price increase, then the price will significantly increase compared with the first 2 of the years. Normally it will be much higher than the 8% of the level, which is pretty much in line with the GDP growth, right? So what we normally monitor is approaching to the 3rd year of every cycle, the price will significantly increase, and then the transaction volume also will be impacted by that. So the authorities will have the certain kind of measures came out with those kind of situation, and in order to cooling off of the price hike. So when we look at the the overall trend in the 3-year cycle, normally it will be more like a very stable of the overall transaction volume and with normalized price condition in the market.
对，所以我们会看到过往呢，就是像2008年呀、2011年呀、2014年呀、2017年呀、2020年尾开始基本上都这样就是每3年一个周期所以这是这行业周期性。但它围绕的底下呢，有几个东西是变化的。虽然周期性都叫周期性，但是呢，第一，房价会在过程中呢稳定有序的上涨，只不过在过程中会有一些波动。第二呢，就是一个城市的成熟度在发生变化。比如刚才我提到，像任何一个城市围绕这种节奏以后呢，比如说原来换手率是1%，对吧？那市场呢就不稳定了。随着市场不断成熟，可能到2%的换手率，到2.5%的换手率，依然还比较稳定，对吧？像美国今年可能到3.5%到4%，依然还能保持稳定。那么它是这个行业成熟的标志，就是当你一个城市的交易量在多少时候还能带来价格的稳定这件事情呢是一个大的一个趋势所以这件事情是波动的本质的原因
So that is why in the past decades, we look at the similar kind of pattern in the year of 2008, 2011, 2014, 2017, and now it's 2021. So approaching to those kind of year end, we're facing like a cyclical of the challenge. But there has 2 of the characteristics I want to mention here as well, right? So firstly, the housing price normally will remain in relatively stable in a relatively long time horizon, but will continue goes up more orderly based on those kind of demands. And secondly, the maturity in those kind of cities or areas also will be changing, followed by the maturity of the market. For example, like maybe in the past of the cycle, 1% will be the stable level, but now may change to the 2% or even higher. In U.S. this year, we look at the 3.5 to 4% of the turnover rate, but the price still relatively stable. So that will be a very strong symbol for the maturity of this kind of industry.
对，所以这里面呢，也大家可以理解一下，刚才有同事问的，就伙伴问的第一个问题哈，就是其实在住这个领域呢，最大的一个政策呢，就是房住不炒，就是房价不要发生快速的非理性的这种上涨啊，这件事情这个行业最大的一个政治。所以我们会看到，比如说以2017年这个调整为例啊，像北京在过2015年到16年的19个月时间里面，房价上涨了62%。像上海就是2014年到16年18个月时间里面上涨了65%，对吧？就是当市场遇到这样的变化以后呢，就会出相应的这种政策，所以其实也回应刚才有就是问的问题，其实对于这个行业的稳定是最重要的，所以呢，在住这个行业最大是要稳定，是要就是价格本身的稳定，并不是说价格不涨，也不是说这个行业不需要，而是说价格只要稳定，就是一个平稳的增长，其实呢就是一个最好的一种行业发展现况，而且我们呢也是对贝壳来说呢，我们本身也是和这个政治本身也是不违背的，我们也希望呢行业平稳的发展，这样的话呢对整个的平台也是最为有利的。
Yeah, so I want to reiterate what we have been mentioned in the prepared remarks. So we think and we truly believe in the housing industry, the biggest key role from the government's perspective is remain the housing is for living in, not for speculation, right? So the purpose behind that is definitely related to the stable price, but the stable price doesn't mean it will be not increasing. It's more represent for the stable increasing, right? So it's not imply an impact of other and bring other social matters. So we have the example in the history. For example, like in Beijing, the last cycles bring the very serious matters is because of Beijing's housing price actually has been up 62% within of 16-month time. And for Shanghai, it also the similar kind of trend is the housing price up to 65% within 18-month times. So after that, it's all brought by the very fears of the measurement from the regulators. So that also a very good testament, right? We truly believe for this industry, the biggest political and the biggest thing is how we can remain the whole industry, especially the housing price stable. And if we are not if we're not against this kind of trend, definitely we believe we can take a benefit on that. And those kind of supply and demand balanced market, it also will be the best of the environment for the BEKE's further development.
对，所以呢，结合这点呢，我想跟大家分享，就是我们自己怎么经历过这些场景啊。如果大家有，比如说知道我们发展经历的话呢，其实也非常有意思。就是每年开始出这个就是政策调整那一年啊，就是2008年、11年、14年、17年，我们的下一年呢，一般都会做一些比较，今天看来呢都是比较男儿正确的事儿，对吧？2008年的时候呢，市场不好；09年呢，我们开始做科学化管理。11年呢市场不好，然后12年呢我们开始去做这个真房源，就是发力在客户体验和线上。2014年呢就是市场低点，然后2015年呢我们开始去做全国化。2017年呢，其实我们2018年我们开始做贝壳。为什么我们会做这样的选择呢？主要是在每个就是政策那一年的时候啊，我们主要思考两个事儿。第一个事儿呢，就是过往无论我们做的多么好，其实呢都不一定是我们真正的好，可能是因为有其他的原因。所以我们会突然发现呢，其实很多时候都是因为有很多条件让我们做得很好，所以进一步思考呢，我们到底能创造什么价值啊？这是一个非常重要的事情。所以这是第一个哈。第二呢，就是其实会更加让我们去看长，就大家会说为什么是长期主义啊？因为它只要过程中间呢经历了很多高点和低点，它才去相信长期主义。 所以长期主义这句话呢，对贝克来说呢，其实就是因为过往的很多的高高低低之后啊，我们会越来越相信的。因为相信一件事情并没有那么容易，是你经历过了，你经历过这样的选择了，你才去做啊。包括我们现在2021年，对吧？我们在看像这个围绕着住啊，有更多很多服务啊，关于这个社会责任啊，对吧？其实我认为都是我们今天看清了，这些事情呢，都是我们应该要去做的，应该要创造价值的。所以这是我们内部呢面临这个时刻的时候呢，我们的思考。
So I can give you more examples in terms of how we can pass through of those kind of, the cycles and make ourselves stronger, right? So as I mentioned in my prepared remarks, like our journeys over the past 20 years, tell us the market corrections always create the opportunities. So if you look at our experience, normally in the second year, when we experience those kind of cycles, so we can create of some of the, the new initiatives and doing the right thing even if it is difficult, right? For example, the cycle in the 2008 and after that the 2009, we introduced a comprehensive scientific management, right? And after 2011 cycle in the year 2012, we promote of the authentic listings. And after 2014 cycle in the year 2015, we initiate our nationwide exploration, all etc. Right? So, and every time when we go through the cycle, as I mentioned, so we always think about two things as a priority. The first thing is whether we already has been done all the things we have been done, and whether we are worth of what we truly believe ourselves, right? Whether we are good enough to create value for the customers. And every time our answer is we can do better, right? So that's the first things we always consider. The second thing is, during those kind of cycles, that give us the opportunity how we look at the long-termism, in a more deep nature, right? And make us as more and more believe of those kind of long-termism will bring the long-term benefit back to the company. So in the year of 2021, when we're facing this cycle, we also has more thinkings around of the the long-term terms. For example, right, the services behind of the home or the housing topic and the renovation services, as well as how we can bring more social values when the companies become stronger and bigger, and how we can repay back to the local community. So that's all the thinkings and the considerations that brought us for this cycle.
对，所以从今年来看哈，比如说这次像深圳啊，这个深房里，对吧？这个炒房啊，房价有大幅上涨啊，包括最近大家看这个统计局的数据哈，全中国新房的成交啊，今年上半年增长了30%以上。房价呢首次突破全中国新房的成交房价首次突破1万块钱啊，而且在过往上半年呢增长幅度超过2位数，所以这件事情都是这件事情出现的大的背景。所以我想跟大家说呢，房住不炒这件事情呢是这个行业最大的，因为价格本身啊就是带来的这种行业的这种变化，但是总体的基调呢就是要稳，对吧？包括房价要稳，不是说不涨，也不是说跌啊，它是要稳定啊，包括地价要稳定，包括大家的预期要稳定，房子是用来住的，不是用来炒的，对吧？所以这件事情呢，我想呢，随着这些政策、这些相应的举措，实际上会给整个行业呢带来一个更加稳定的环境。所以过往呢有很多谣言啊，对吧？比如说需不需要这些行业啦，这个是不是要这个，对吧？这些东西呢都说实话呢都是无中生有，核心呢还是抓住一个本质，就是如何能去房价本身的这种非理性，这对整个都是不利的，对贝壳也是不利的。所以我们自己认为呢，这件事情本身，无论我们怎么看哈，过往这么多年，我们坚持我们去创造价值，然后呢，同时结合我们自己的能力，能在更大的住的领域去创造更大的价值，我想我们才能去穿越时间啊。所以这也是给刚才这个问题的回答吧。好，谢谢。
So that is why this year, when we look at the Shenzhen's case, right after of the the Shenfang has been cracked down, as well as other things, bring an irrational of the market for Shenzhen. And meanwhile, we also looked at the survey from the overall new home market, right? This year's overall, the transaction volume has been up 30%. and the average of the price for the new homes in China also has been surpassed 10,000 RMB per square of the level, right? So that's all bring enough of the reasons for the authorities continue to apply some of the measurement to make sure of the stable of the overall real estate market as well as the stable of the housing price. So again, when we talk about the housing price, it doesn't mean right the house price will not go up, but behind that, we truly believe it's more like a moderate growth and with a moderate expectations. So all the things behind the whole philosophies will be quite important to I would say the long term of the healthy condition for the industry. And meanwhile, we also mentioned, there are a lot of rumors, right? Whether this, for example, like agents industry should be continue exist, or whether, we'll have the further pressures or etc. But we truly believe those kind of rumors will be the totally nonsense, right? So as far as we can continue provide the value to our customers as well as our, the platform participants. So definitely, we can continue to bring the value, to the communities, especially those kind of, the supply and demand balance market with a very stable of the housing price is also the best of the environment for the bakers for the development. So we will continue support of those kind of policy and continue create value based on those kind of market environment. Thank you. So that's all the philosophies and my thinkings behind your questions. Back to your operator.
Thank you very much. Next questions will come from Steven Tai from Morgan Stanley. Please ask your question.
关一成你们好，谢谢接受我的提问啊。我的问题是，今年以来不同规模的开发商部分存在了流动性的风险，那我们该怎么去衡量这在我们应收账款上的风险呢？那像是我们目前有多少的 bad debt provision 在账上？那如果说这类的流动性问题持续扩大，会不会影响我们之后在新房分销这边的佣金率呢？那我自己翻译一下吧。Thank you for taking my questions. My question is related to the liquidity issue and concerns that some of the top developers and some smaller ones are facing. So how should we size the potential impact on the account receivable risk for our new home sales business? Maybe how much bad debt provision you have recognized on your balance sheet so far? And if this issue persists and escalates, would that affect the new home commission rates of our new home distribution business going forward? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Steven. For our collection, the status is very healthy. If we look at the DSO of the company, in 2018, 2019, and 2020, our GTV of new home increased from 281 billion to 746 billion and to 1.4 trillion respectively. But our DSO were 117 days, 96 days, and 103 days respectively. So you will see even the total top line year-over-year we doubled, but our DSO continuously dropped. Especially in this Q2, the GTV of the new home is almost 500 billion, but our DSO further improved to 92 days. The reason behind that is that the company has stringent revenue recognition criteria for new home sales. The company evaluates the historical payment rate for developers thoroughly and recognize the revenue for the high-risk developer on cash basis under CSOX accounting standard. That is, we do a very prudent revenue recognition. The company also adopts diversified measures to ensure the payment collection safety, including adoption of the litigation preservation and other necessary measures, and with the continuous improvement in the accounts receivable collections. In this year, we reasonably foresee some of developers, they may encounter some difficult time, and some of them will identify as high-risk developers. I will not mention the name at this moment on our platform. And I can share with one number, the total receivable from the so-called high-risk developer accounts receivable we reduced from 1.5 billion to around 800 million by the end of the second quarter. So everything continues to improve. And also I want to share is In BEKE, we are currently offer service for more than 7,000 projects and more than 240 developers across country by end of Q2. And the concentration rate is still healthy, and the top 10 developer that counts around our 25.5% of transaction volume, and from the top 100 developer that counts around 63%. So we have a very low degree of business concentration, and the bad debt risk for a single developer is relatively low. And also, I want to share with you is the question is also related to our view to overall new home sales market trend. And I think recent restriction hurdle of existing home transaction will ultimately impact the new home sales market. In order to improve the potential consumer conversation and the cash collection, the developer, there are more and more allocate resources and inventory to the channel sales, such as BEKE. So the high demand of channel sales from developer will ultimately drive BEKE's growth for our new home transaction service in the second quarter. And from BEKE internally, we say the cash is the king. We put tremendous efforts for the project verification and ensure all of the collection will be collected in time. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The next question comes from Ashley Xu of Credit Suisse. Please ask your question.
Thanks, management, for taking my questions. Two from me. The first is about some initiative from some local governments to establish a website where they require the brokers to upload authentic listings to that website. It's still ongoing efforts, so early stage, but just want to check on management view on how such efforts could potentially impact the way BEKE functions or works. And second question is on regulations front, mainly both in antitrust and also data security. How those regulations impact BEKE? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do aware some of news regarding for example, Shenzhen. They have a so-called short-lived property platform. First, I want to clarify the system is a regular e-government information system. It's not a so-called platform to do the transaction business. The key goal for this upgrade of the e-government system is to obtain the first-hand information on property listing, to effectively carry out regulation as a frontline watchtower to prevent the market from overheating. Actually, this is nothing new. In addition to Shenzhen, we notice other cities who are leading in urban service also have the same practice. And for example, in Hangzhou, we see they have the similar function and feature on their systems. This is not the new things. Regardless of which new system or new format emerging, our key focus will always be a better customer experience, transaction efficiency, and whether the listing price is authentic. Our underlying operating logic is highly consistent with this so-called e-government systems because it will further enforce authentic listing and facilitate the cooperation among agents. This is also in line with our ACN because we see the ACN is the culture of the transparency, collaboration, and shared success. And in past decades, we introduced and insist to do the authentic listing. While those companies rely on the fake listing, I'm not mention the company name here, and do the skipping order will face challenges. It's quite obviously who will benefit and who will face challenges. We believe the launch of such system will promote the healthy competition in the industry. So we are not worried about this, and we are fully uphold and support this. Your second question is for antitrust. Okay. Regarding the antitrust, first, we would like to clarify again, the news from Reuters related to BEKE 2 months ago was a fake news. And currently, the company is not under any formal investigation related to antitrust issue, especially after we timely submit our self-inspection report like other 33 platform companies in May. BEKE consistently operate within the bounds of laws, regulation, and rules. We always prioritize the interests of user and spare no effort to achieve the win-win results through the cooperative mechanism. We insist on our commitment to promoting the healthy development of the industry, devoted in solving inauthentic property listing, and striving to be an outstanding company in full compliance with the rules and the regulations. The good thing is, through this round of frequent communication with government authority and the state administration for market regulations, as a corporate citizen, we are even more determined to take social responsibility as a top priority. At the same time, the government also gained a better understanding of BEKE's business model and our contribution we have made to help industry grow and iterate in past 20 years. In addition, our diligent attitude in handling the self-inspection and other related matters, and the efforts and the contribution we made to industry progress was well recognized by the authority. For example, our invested brand of 700 million in Shenzhen 4 brand of Beitown offers affordable and quality rental services for the young generation living in large and middle cities, and create more social value for local communication. One of its projects has been featured and reported by CCTV News, 新闻联播 on 31st July, which demonstrates highly recognition from the authority. Okay, I hope this clarifies the question.
Thank you. We're now approaching the end of the conference call. I'll now turn the call over to your speaker host today, Mr. Matthew Zhang, for closing remarks.
Thank you, operator. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact BEKE's Investor Relations team through the contact information provided on our website. This concludes today's call, and we look forward to speaking with you again next quarter.